Alright, so for this video, I wanted to talk about finding the slope when you're given an equation. So I have this up here because I kind of wanted to remind you guys about how we've been finding slope up until now, or just to give you guys the reminder. So, for example, before, what you've seen is you would have like 2 points on a line, and then I would ask you, okay, count up the grid, right? And then figure out what your rise over run is. So that was one way we found the slope. So rise over run. The other way that we would find the slope, which I just recently did, was I would have you you would be given 2 points, and then you'd have to remember the equation y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Okay? So those are the 2 ways that we've learned how to find slope so far. But today, or at least for this video, I wanted to show you guys how to find the slope if you're given an equation. And there's really one equation that's just absolutely essential when it comes to, this section, but linear equations in general, and that's the slope-intercept form. So the slope-intercept form, all right, is y is equal to mx plus b. Okay, and the two important variables in this are your m and your b. So I mean, it's no secret anymore that m represents your slope. So let me just go ahead and label that maybe in a different color. So I'll say that m represents our slope, and that b represents our y-intercept. And if you guys remember, the y-intercept would be an ordered pair, and it would just be 0, b. That would be the format of your y-intercept. So let's kind of do an example with all of this. Let's say it's not even that straight of a line, but it's okay. So let's say we had the equation y is equal to 3x minus 4. All right? All I want you to do is I want you to look at the slope, which is right there. It's always going to be the number that's in front of the x. That's something you have to remember. So the slope is that number in front of the x. So here we could just easily identify it and recognize that the slope is 3. Right? Or if when you're graphing, it'd probably be a good idea to look at it as 3 over 1, especially when you're graphing it later. They're both the same thing, but this will be a lot more helpful when you're actually going to graph these later. And then your y-intercept, right, is going to be 0, negative 4. All right, and that's all I want you to know for now, especially for this section. I just want you to look at a linear equation and just recognize that the number in front of the x is your slope, and then that other number is your is going to help you figure out your y-intercept. Okay. Now, very rarely, or not very rarely, but for some of the questions that I'm going to give you, I'm not always going to give it to you in this form. Okay, and this method is effective, especially when you have, notice what you have here. You have the y is equal to 3x minus 4, and y is equal to mx plus b. Well, what do you notice about these two equations? Well, no one's here to answer that, but I'll answer it for you. You'll notice that the y's, they're by themselves, right? So that's the goal whenever you're trying to figure out or interpret the slope and the y-intercept from an equation, is you have to make sure that the y is by itself. Make a note of that. You have to make sure that the y is by itself. Is by itself. So let me go ahead and give you an example of this. So let's say I gave you negative 3x plus 2y is equal to 11, and I say identify the slope and y-intercept. All right. So again, all you got to do is you got to I'm just going to rewrite my equation. So negative 3x plus 2y is equal to 11. And now I just got to move everything over to one side and make sure that the y is by itself. So I have this negative 3x that's in the way. So what I can do is I can move, when I move that to the other side, I have to add 3x to both sides. Right? And it's just going to be good habit for you to, whenever you have 11 plus 3x, I would go ahead and put the 3x first. That way it actually takes on this form nicely. So I'll do 3x plus 11. They're both the same thing, 3x plus 11 and 11 plus 3x. Yeah, they're basically the same thing. And now to get the y by itself, I have to divide by 2, right? But remember, if I divide one term by 2, I have to make sure I divide every term by 2, right? Including that 11. A lot of people seem to mess that up. So now we're going to have y is equal to 3 halves x plus 11 over 2. Yes, 3 halves x is the same thing as 3x divided by 2. I just wanted to move the x over here. That way I can easily identify my slope from there. And then from there I can just go ahead and say, well, my slope is 3 halves. And my y-intercept is 0 and positive 11 halves. All right. So I'm just going to do one more problem. Again, I want to try to keep these videos nice and short because I'm not trying to get you guys to, watch hours and hours of lecture video. I just want you guys to get the general gist of how you do things in this class. And then all of the practice will be done in class where I can actually see you doing the problems. Okay, so let's say they gave you a question. Let me just change the wording up a little. Let's say they say find the slope of the line negative y is equal to 6x minus 7. Okay, so again, if you guys remember, the goal is to get the y by itself. And it's not necessarily by itself here because you have that negative sign in the way. Alright, so what you got to make sure you do is go ahead and get rid of that negative sign. I'm finding my blue. Oh, here it is. Okay, so I have negative y is equal to 6x minus 7. So you can either do this one of two ways. You can either multiply everything by negative 1 or divide everything by negative 1. Just remember that whatever you decide to do, whether it be multiplying or dividing, whatever you do to one term, you have to make sure you do to every single term. Okay, so if I'm gonna divide by negative 1, I'm gonna divide this by negative 1, divide this by negative 1, and divide this by negative 1. All right. So then when you end up doing that, you go ahead and you say, okay, so y is now equal to negative 6x plus 7, and then from here, I could just identify my slope as negative 6 and my y-intercept as 0, 7. All right. And we're getting closer and closer to finally being able to graph and, all kinds of linear equations. So this is pretty life-changing stuff. I know this is exciting, so I can't wait to actually see you guys implement this in class. And I think this is the first video. I've tried other videos in the past, but they haven't been very decent quality, so we'll see how this one turns out. Hopefully it works. But again, just keep in mind that this is probably going to be the first video that I show you guys, and I would appreciate any feedback you have. Maybe I'm talking too fast, maybe I'm sniffling too much, maybe my voice is too monotone. I don't know. Just go ahead and, give me as many suggestions as you can. Please make them constructive, of course. And that's about it. Thank you.